in here. So we're gonna get started, but before I pass it over to Cole, who has a great event for you guys today, I do want to talk a little bit about the NYC Data Science Academy. So thank you all for joining us today. And I'm gonna just go over if anyone is interested in joining our boot camp, if you haven't done so already, what we do here, our application process and all that good stuff. So let's get started. Hold on. So, a little bit about our schools and some accolades that we have. So, NYC DSA, we are an accredited data science bootcamp. We're one of, I don't know if we're still the only one, but I definitely know we are one of the few accredited data science boot camps. We are accredited with ACIT. So we definitely do, as we say, and try to give our students the best education for data science and data analytical um, education. We do teaching in both Python and R programming languages. While you're in the program, which is super helpful and awesome, you do have the opportunity to create your own individual projects. You also can do a group project as well that we do incorporate into your resume to show employers that you have experience with doing these programming languages. While you're in the boot camp, we also do give you career service support. It typically starts while you're in the boot camp, but well after you graduate and complete the program as well, you will be able to get some career service support. So that includes resume, cover letter, your LinkedIn profile. We go over all those things to make sure that you are a suitable candidate to apply all the things that you've learned once you are done with the boot camp into the real world. Currently, we have over 2,000 alumni across the globe. One thing that I do love about the boot camp is that our alumni, they're super helpful. So if you are looking for a referral for a job, you can always reach out to someone in our network and they're always willing to help out. So that's super awesome to see. They are in all different types of industries, from government to AI to, I mean, it's almost every industry that is available. You can find one of our alumni that has attended our program, which is really cool to see as well. And we also were rated Best Data Science Boot Camp, an online boot camp by switchup.org as well. So, we do a really great job in teaching our students and getting them to become great data scientists and data analysts once they complete. So, just some upcoming start dates that we have. So, we do have a data science and machine learning boot camp. You have a couple of options for those boot camps. We have a part-time, a full-time, and an in-person. These are the dates underneath. So, for the full time, it's 16 weeks. The next start date is this coming February 19th until June 7th. Our part time is February 19th, same start date, until August 2nd. And then for our spring in person remote live, the next start date is April 1st to June 21st. That one is 12 weeks long. And then we also have analytics. So if you wanted to do that program, it's a little bit shorter. Oops. Our next start date is also on the 19th for that program of 12 weeks. That is the full-time option if you wanted to do that one. If you are curious about which one you should pick, if you're a little unsure of what boot camp you would like to go with, some things that you should consider before picking is knowing what's the difference between the two boot camps. Data analytics does not include the machine learning component of the education. If you're interested in machine learning, then you should look into doing data science. We have our catalogs online, so you can go through it and see which one you think will be helpful. If there are certain jobs you're interested in, look to see what the job is requiring you to do, and then you can base which data science bootcamp that you would want to do. Something to keep in mind though, if you did start the data analytics bootcamp, you can then go on to complete the machine learning for data science. Actually, they parallel with each other. When you do the data analytics and start the data science, you would be starting off doing the same thing, but it does stop once we get into the machine learning part of it. Another thing to also include is, say, for instance, if you started with data analytics, you would only have to pay the difference between the data science and data analytics bootcamp to continue on. So it wouldn't be an additional amount of $17,000. You'll just have to pay a difference of about $8,000 to continue on to do the machine learning bootcamp. So here are some differences if you're interested to see what the program is kind of set up. If you have the capabilities of doing the program, these are some things to keep in mind as far as like the time constraints that you would have to dedicate in order to complete the boot camp within the duration. So the in-person live is a very strict schedule. You have to be present during those times, at least 40 hours per week for the 12-week duration. The online programs are a little bit more flexible, so you can kind of create your own schedule in a sense in order for you to complete the online programs. Minimum at least 30 hours for the part-time, and then minimum 40 hours for the full-time program. We also have our bootcamp prep courses. So if you are new to the industry, but you're interested in learning more, this is also a great opportunity to do so. The bootcamp prep consists of 3 courses. So one is introductory to Python, data science with Python, with data analysis and visualization, and then data science with R for data and analysis and visualization. So if you're really new to the game, you want to definitely tap into the data science world, but don't have any kind of experience, or if you're looking to brush up on those skills, this is also a great opportunity for you to learn and get some basic support and understanding of what you're looking to get into before entering the boot camp. We do also have some upcoming dates for those programs. As you can see, the prices are here. The total amount for the 1 year, I mean, excuse me, for the 3 courses is $5,000. That also is deducted if you decided to go into either the data analyst program or the data science boot camp. So again, it's an addition to not, I mean, excuse me, it's not an addition to, you'll just have to pay the difference. So our next start date is coming up towards the end of this month. The first one being February 24th. Those are Saturday classes. The 25th for the data science and Python, that's Sunday classes, and then the introductory to Python. Those are Monday and Wednesday classes, typically in the evenings. So the application process, super simple, super easy. You would submit your application on our website. Once you do so, then you would schedule your interview. And then there is a technical assessment. This is only for the data and analysis and data science bootcamp, if you are interested in doing so. And here is some information mostly about like the cost of the program if you wanted to attend the data science bootcamp. There is also pre-work before you start, so you would be able to, try some things out before you actually go full gear in the program as well. So here are some of our alumni that have attended our boot camp as well. Some great companies, they have been able to join. Kyle, he's been still working with us. He's done an MLOps, machine learning ops program with us one time too. I think he even has a book out too, from my understanding. So yeah, we have a lot of great alumni, as I mentioned before, who have learned so much from our boot camp and have been able to apply the things that they've learned once they've completed. And that is all. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at admissions at NYC Data Science Academy. Do I have anyone has any questions before I pass it over to Cole? All right, Cole, you have a great event. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a great one.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and welcome to everyone. So my name is Dr. Cole Ingram, and today I'm going to be taking us on a journey through turning text into stuff. That stuff can be more text, it can be images, it will be fun, we'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll make some pictures. So throughout all of this, if you want to type any questions or thoughts or anything into chat, I will be trying to monitor that, so keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and get started. Allow me to share my screen here. So at this point in our lives, I believe everyone is familiar with some form of text to something model. I believe unless you've lived under a rock for the past year, you've probably interacted with ChatGPT many times per day. Today, I wanted to really focus on sort of like intermingling a few different models together and talk about why we would do that, things we can build with it. And I want to do this through the context of text to image models. So there have been a number of these things coming out for a while. The most well-known ones being OpenAI's DALL-E 1, 2, so on. Stable Diffusion from Stability AI, Midjourney from Midjourney, Firefly from Adobe, and there are others and everything like that. But these all work on the basis of you have one way to work with them at least is you have some text referred to as a prompt describing the image you want, and then it creates an image. And there's some different ways of working with that. So I wanted to show a few examples, and then we're going to get into working with this. We're going to talk about some of the things that we can do with it and how we can ultimately make it better. And with an eye towards turning this into like a potential product or something that someone could use. So for what I'm showing right here, these images are all generated by Stable Diffusion version 1.5, I believe. So at a minimum to work with this, you have to give some sort of starting text. So in this case, I gave this the words and AT-AT from Star Wars, and it produced this image over here. Now, looking at it, if you're familiar with Star Wars, you'll say it's like, well, kind of, but not really, but that's okay. Like it's getting it generally, it's getting something for us. And some of the features we might notice from that is we have a robot. It's kind of tall-ish. It's kind of boxy, which is what an AT-AT looks like generally. Like it's got some things wrong with the shape. That's fine. It's on a sort of desert with an open sky, which it's sort of plausible if there's some Star Wars there, even though like the most iconic instance of an AT-AT would probably be Hoth, the frozen planet. That's fine. But all of that came just from these 5 words that we put here. So let's change it up a little bit. Often people, when they're working with these models, they'll want to do something about like the style that you're working with. So in this case, I'm going to change this into an oil painting of an AT-AT from Star Wars. So just with adding basically 2 words, we get this over here, which like, again, if you look at it, it has some of the same characteristics. Tall-ish, boxy robot, not quite an AT-AT, but that's fine. Still on sort of a desert-y place, but looks like it was painted. Whether exactly that's oil painting or something, debatable, but it is very painterly compared to this one, which was more photorealistic, or maybe if you don't believe it's photorealistic, maybe 3D rendering, but not painted. So moving on here, let's go a little bit further. People found out really quickly that because these models are trained on lots and lots of image and text pairs, scraped usually from the internet and things, including images from museums and famous artists and things. Typically, there will be associations of either the title of an image or an artist in the data. So what that ends up allowing us to do is something like an oil painting of an AT-AT from Star Wars in the style of Vincent van Gogh. So in that case, if you are familiar at all with Van Gogh, you'll notice that this is very much like his sort of like impressionistic style. kind of in the vein of
Okay,
his
keep doing what you're doing.
Starry
I'm
Night.
gonna ask you, bring your laptop
Um,
to downstairs to do homework.
then
Just
let's
in your
say,
last
so this
chance,
has been talking about Van
Bobby,
Gogh
you're now
specifically.
listening.
Um,
Did you hear me?
but so what if we want to get more specific and say Starry Night? Let's do that instead. And so again, an oil painting of an AT-AT from Star Wars in the style of Starry Night. So we can look at the two of these, and they both have kind of what we're saying, like their oil painting, their style of Starry Night slash Van Gogh, which both of those are kind of synonymous, at least in like most of the time when you talk to people. So this brings up the point that when you're trying to ask for style, you can do something like the medium. You can do reference an artist. You can reference a particular work. All of that's fine. Um, Now, people also figured out from messing with this because these models, again, were trained on images from the internet. So if you think about where on the internet can you get images, just general Google search, Instagram, DeviantArt, things like that, are pretty common. Twitter, X. So in that case, if you think about, if you look at where people post those images and you look at what they put on them, usually there's like hashtags and stuff like that. And they found out a lot of people tended to put things like trending on ArtStation, 4K, Unreal Engine, and different sort of these modifiers or hashtags that you would put on something to get more SEO, more traffic coming to your images. So it turned out because this was trained on um, that kind of data, if you add that to your prompt, in this case, an oil painting of an AT-AT from Star Wars in the style of Starry Night, 4K trending on ArtStation, you get, again, a different effect. And comparing this version to the previous few, this one has like a bit more, you can see sort of like the texture of the oil paint on the canvas, that sort of thing, which is kind of, I guess, the 4K-ish side of it. But yeah, it sort of doesn't matter. The point is you can add some sort of word salad to your prompts in order to get a different result. Whether it's better or worse depends on a lot of things. But this is the sort of key or jumping off point, if you will, for today. You can put a minimal amount of text and get something. You can put more text and get something more. And typically, like we can think about things like style, aesthetics for different artists or something like medium, other modifiers or things that, again, would sort of point to aesthetics. So that's one thing just functionally that people came up with. And there are actually data sets around trying to figure out, like, it's an open question what in your prompt changes the output and how it changes it. So among other things, there's this diffusion DB data set, which is just, as you can see scrolling in here, a bunch of pairs of images generated from these models, along with the metadata, which is stuff like the prompt, so all of the text that went with it, some of the other things like the random seed, some of the settings for the model. So if I come down to show a quick example of one of these, I'll make this a little bit bigger. You can see here this bluish geodesic dome here, for instance, was geodesic landscape, John Chamberlain, Christopher Balaxa, blah, 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 4K, it has 4K at the end, and so on. So there is like a data set that exists around this sort of thing that you can work with, and you can pair it with the images themselves. So maybe you knew all of that, but the main thing that I want us to think about from here to the rest of our session is how we might how we might make something like this more usable for an audience. Like, let's say that we're trying to make a text to image powered product rather than just a model that can do stuff. And we want that thing to be easy to use. An example of this in the pure text to image world still is if you hear people talking about the differences between the major models, so like again, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, a lot of people tend to say Midjourney, well, they have all pretty aesthetics. Midjourney tends to be more cinematic, things like that, or sort of photorealistic. That's a lot of the descriptions people give. With Stable Diffusion, it tends to be more sort of pictorial, things like that. Dolly tends to be more cartoony. It's not universally true, and also it is completely dependent on how you prompt it. The difference, though, is the choices that the developers made when they were training the model. So Midjourney, for example, they decided that their target audience, their like primary user, would be people that like cinematic, photorealistic stuff. So they made it so that the model by default tends towards that. Because if you can think about like the space of all images that you could possibly make, some of them are photorealistic. There's also plenty of things. There's like vector graphics, there's clip art, there's paintings, there's, 8-bit, there's like lots of stuff. But just what do you want it to do sort of with minimal text? And this first part here is a prime example. So saying nothing but the subject of what I wanted. For this version of Stable Diffusion, I happen to get something that's like, again, kind of 3D rendering. And we can actually try this out too. So, and I'll put this in the chat if you would like to go to it and play with it yourself. So this is a Hugging Face space running Stable Diffusion 2.1. And just to see like what we get right now, let's try my same exact prompt. So an AT from Star Wars. And I need to make this smaller so I can do that. So with just that prompt, you have to wait a little bit for it to come up, but then this is going to generate 4 options, 4 images that are of an AT-AT from Star Wars in its, based on what it knows. So, this is the first time I've actually seen it give me a stormtrooper instead when I asked for AT-AT. So a few things here, and if you have reactions too, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to riff on this a little bit too. One thing, when I generated this image before, it was with Stable Diffusion, but it was with version 1.5, I believe. This is version 2. It's known to just be different. So some things that, and I've tried this prompt before on 2.1 in the past. The thing I notice about it is it tends to be, the AT-AT at least here, tends to be like cardboard looking, which I think still holds here. This looks, it's a boxy robot thing, yeah, but it seems to be made of a cardboard-like substance. Maybe this stormtrooper here, that's a little more blocky. This is maybe a little more 3D rendering, which sort of matches with what we were looking at here. But some other things like these bottom 2, like this one down here is more in sort of like the desert, which does match with whatever this did. This one's not quite desert, maybe oasis, then one in like I don't know, looks like a gallery or something. It could be I don't know, but a couple inside. So slightly different. Again, this is just like the default for this. I could generate another one and that's fine. But we're gonna, the reason we're gonna talk about this is if you are thinking like Midjourney, like not the model, but the people who make it, their goal is going to be, I want people to come in to use this and do as little as possible to get what they want. That's like putting your product hat on. You want your user experience to be as smooth and seamless as possible. So a goal would be, if I'm coming to this and I put an AT-AT from Star Wars, maybe what I want is an image like this that would otherwise take a lot of typing. But I'm lazy as a user and I don't want to type. So our goal here is to think about how we can get from a short prompt to a longer prompt that gives a more specific output. What specific output we're looking for depends on the use case. Like again, Midjourney is a cinematic thing. If I was going for Van Gogh inspired trending on ArtStation, could go here. So that's going to be some of the stuff that we're going to be exploring right now. So beyond the Diffusion DV, which I'll actually put this in the chat as well, if you would like to take a look at it. There's also many different places that have basically collections of images and prompts that were generated. So this is one called Prompt Hero. I'll put this in the chat as well. And this is specifically, they have many different models that they track here. One of them is Stable Diffusion 2.1, which is the one that we're currently playing with. And there's some examples here. A few by like the same person repeatedly. This is pretty cool. Let's take a look at one of these just for the heck of it. So what do we have here? We have a black and white image of ice cream on a table somewhere or on a counter. So right over here is the text that this came with. So Deeth Ice Cream Store, comic book, manga, black and white painting, art by Rembrandt in the style of Pinterest, spotlighting, fine detail, sharp, intricate details, hyper-realistic, Unreal Engine, elegant. So that definitely has a bunch of the word salad we were talking about, like Unreal Engine. It doesn't have ArtStation, but it has Pinterest. Hyper-realistic, so on. It also has a reference to an artist, Rembrandt. Another stylistic thing, manga black and white painting, and so on. Now, I'm actually going to copy this and try it out just to see where we get with the full thing. I mean, we already saw what their result is. I want to see what it does right now to just see how consistent it is. There's one of the other things, like if you, I'm sure everyone's heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, this is not what I was expecting here. But if a picture is worth 1,000 words, if you have 1,000-word prompt, it will be a better representation of the picture, basically, is where I'm going. And this comes a lot of the time from, there's many ways to describe the same image. You can be more detailed, you can be less detailed. Regardless of if what we looked at over here looks anything like what we just made, let me point out some things that are going on here. So it's black and white. We did say that. It's probably the comic book manga style or manga part here. It's I believe that's where some of the pen sort of strokes and things are coming from. I don't know how much that this did picked up on the Rembrandt part necessarily. Seems to not care that much about the ice cream part. It does seem to get, I mean, well, so with a few exceptions, especially slightly older image models are really bad at putting actual text, but it's trying really hard. This is US cam instead of ice cream. DTC, that's like almost what we put there, whatever. But anyway, between these four images, another thing to pick up on is how consistent the four of them are. So like if I was to just get rid of all this and say like ice, and then let that go, I would expect all four of them to have ice cream but be wildly different. So we'll see how correct I am. All right, so I think I was mostly right here. So over here, you first have a bunch of ice cream cones. These are more sort of like photo-ish. Right here, you have something that's a lot more looking like a drawing, an illustration. You have some more photos of things. This one's closer up. This has a lot more. This has less. So the quantity of cones or of ice cream in each one is different. The colors tend to be similar, but yeah, I guess that makes sense. The ice cream is usually pretty similar. But you can imagine like if I put like blue ice cream here, then I would kind of expect the diversity to be there still, except for in color and have it be more blue. Now, whether it's like the image is blue or the ice cream is blue, we'll have to see. Okay. I think that tracks with what I was saying. So we ended up with the ice cream is blue. There are many different angles of ice cream, different quantities, 3 versus sort of 1 versus 2 and things like that. So, okay. Again, all of this is still to just talk about how changing the prompt changes the output. And we want to specifically have an eye towards being able to write less and get more consistent output, which requires writing more. So one way to do that, when you want to get more text out of nowhere, is to go to something like a language model. So we're actually going to move over into trying to use something like ChatGPT to take a short prompt and make a long prompt out of it. And that would hopefully be more consistent. So over here is ChatGPT. Hello, ChatGPT. I believe this needs no introduction at this point. So to start off with, one thing you might think of, and I'm using, if you see, the free version 3.5. So if you are familiar, GPT 3.5, the training cutoff was what, December 2021, which was also before Stable Diffusion came out. So if I say like, what is Stable Diffusion? Yeah, so it's not a term that's widely used. It obviously is widely used now, but my point is ChatGPT 3.5 does not know about it. Are the images generated selected from the internet, or are the images generated or selected from the internet, more like an image search? So good question. In the case of Stable Diffusion, these are generated on the fly. So when you see that progress bar, like I'll just go ahead and make it happen again. This progress bar is actually waiting for the server to give you back an image, or in this case, it's going to ask for 4 images. These are not searching the internet. This is actually making it straight from the text. Yeah, this time we got a painting version, or a illustrative version. Yeah, so text to image models are generative. Text in, new image out. Now there are exceptions to that. You can actually use these models, not in this particular website, but if you had the model, you can use it where you give it an image and then some text and ask it to change an image that you have, but they are not search models. They are generating images. So again, back here to ChatGPT, just to prove that there's nothing up my sleeve, ChatGPT doesn't know about what Stable Diffusion is. This is talking about something that has nothing to do with what we actually want. And the reason I bring that up is you can't just say, hey, ChatGPT, make a good Stable Diffusion prompt for this, because it's not going to know what you're talking about. However, what we can do is think about how we've been changing the text to get something. So like we started with only the subject, and we moved to adding styles. We adding references to artists. Now, an easy thing where you would not need ChatGPT at all would be to just pick a style, pick an artist, and shove the rest of what you're asking into it. We're not going to do that though. We're gonna ask ChatGPT for some stuff. So let's start by asking it for like a more detailed description of something. So like describe an image of ice cream. So without a specific image reference, I'll describe a typical and delightful scene with ice cream. So all of this might be too long, but I'm going to start with just this first paragraph here. So let's take that and we'll put it into our image generator and then see what happens. So in this image, a delectable ice cream cone stands tall, adorned with gorgeous scoop of velvety pastel-hued ice cream. All right, yeah, I would agree with that. Oh, one other thing to know about diffusion models until more recently is they are horrible with hands. So don't even look at that. It's disturbing. Newer models are better at that. But yeah, so all of these, first of all, ignoring the hand, they're pretty consistent. Sort of like when we asked for blue ice cream versus just normal ice cream. It does do things like there is one ice cream cone. This said like a delectable ice cream cone. It stands tall, so like it's big. It's in the frame, adorned with pastel-hued ice cream. So some here in the background is that that's fine. Ice cream resembles a work of art. It glistens under the sunlight. All of that. Ultimately, basically, the longer your text or the more specific it is in an image prompt, the more specific the image will be generated. Thus, the more consistent. Now we could do, I don't know, lots of things here. Like, well, let's try something slightly different. So in that case, I started with describe an image of an ice cream cone. How about, I don't know, let's say describe and describe an image of ice cream in the style of Warhol or Warhol. So, okay, this looks like a good piece of text come out of here. Now, for if you're not familiar why, like, I'm not grabbing all of the text for this because I actually don't remember off the top of my head how much text you can shove into this version of Stable Diffusion we're using. These things tend to have a limit to how much text you can give them at one time. So picking a paragraph seems to fit. So, okay, this is, again, I started with sort of like before, I'll start this generating. I started with the subject, and I just said in the style of someone, but then asking for elaboration. So regardless of what this does, I would hope that all 4 images are fairly consistent. Yeah, okay, I believe this. Pretty good. Right. So right off the bat, like if I compare that to just my prompt before I asked ChatGPT to elaborate on it. Let's go. This one, probably the Warhol, it's gonna be more, there's gonna be some consistency there, but it's probably gonna be a little more varied. No, actually, it wasn't as Warhol-y as I thought it would be. Well, proves my ultimate point even more. So what we're seeing here is um, exploding the amount of text has a massive input on the image. So if I was going to do something where I'm going to have a product that is going to generate images, I don't feel like retraining an entire one of these models to make it like you can fine tune these things to make them more specific, sort of like the Midjourney style, like where it just does the thing that it does. But here, one thing you could do is basically chain together a language model. Like you give it a prompt, you ask, you just add describe to the front of it, get some output, take some of that, and then give it to the text image model. And there, in that case, you're going to have like a particular style. It'll be whatever style ChatGPT tends to, in this case, ChatGPT tries to coerce it into. You can do other things here to change what this prompt is. I was intentionally only adding one word and then whatever else I wanted. But this gets into the whole field of what's known as prompt engineering, which is trying to come up with how do you ask one of these models to do something. When it comes to the image model, by the time you get here, you pretty much like want to just give it some text, however you got it. But like when you're talking about ChatGPT and things like that, you can ask it a lot of specific things. Like let's see. How about describe and I can't type describe right now. Describe an image of ice cream. Here, let's say you are uh, a uh, you are an abstract artist. So you're an abstract artist, describe an image of ice cream. So in this case, I gave more of a, well, not even an art movement, but like a just general idea of a persona, I guess. Um, abstract representation of hyper. All right, let's just take this. Um, now, it's kind of interesting in this like full circle. There's an older slew of things that were called like just BS generators, where like you'd have one for artists, you'd have one for composers and stuff, like generate like garbage wall text. ChatGPT is like that on steroids. So okay. I guess it's ice cream inspired art like this. So which makes sense. That's what I asked it to do. In this abstract representation of ice cream, vibrant swirls of color dance across the canvas, creating a symphony of pastels and hues. Right. So yeah, in this case, like I could abstractify everything. So, or I could change this to be as a children's book illustrate. Yeah, you want to put a apostrophe there. Let's grab this one, put it over here. Something went wrong. Oh no. Unsafe content found. It's a children's book. So some of the things with any of these models is they often have guardrails put in front of them. So you've probably, if you played with ChatGPT, you've probably run into situations where you ask it to do something and says like, as an AI language model, I'm not allowed to do that. These are the same way. Now I'd have to hunt and find, like just trying, I guess, get rid of, what's going on here? So keep only the first sentence or something like that. Oh, you know what it probably is? Children's. For reasons you might see. I'm going to take the second paragraph. We'll try that one. But image models also have guardrails because you can imagine not wanting to generate certain kinds of images, especially if you are the owner of the website and not wanting to get sued or something like that. If you have one of these models on your own machine, you don't have to worry about that. But okay. I mean, based on the description, seems fine. It's a lot more childish, if you will. So, okay, again, all of this is still coming to reframing it as if I'm trying to build a product that can give more consistent output of images given a text, then I can mess with stuff up here. Like you can give some sort of global directive here, and then you can just take in whatever someone is asking or whatever someone is requesting, like what their actual prompt is here. And that will give you something that is much more consistent. It only gave me 3, or yeah, that's fine. So a way that you can do this, like there's one more thing here. So like, let me put, just for keep your response as short as possible. Now, the reason I'm saying this is, well, to make it short, but I wanted to not have like 3 paragraphs where I have to pick one. I just want to take all of the text. We'll try that. So this text is shorter. We'll see how well it does, given that. So it's not always purely how many words. It's like how much bang for your buck, how punchy it is. Okay. A delightful scene with ice cream cones, scoops piled high on a waffle cone, cheerful sprinkles, and whimsical cherry on top. Yeah. Yep. So again, I think something like that, you could ask it to be not as short as possible, but longer, something it still makes it consistent. Now, if you were going to build a product like this, there's a few other things to think about. You're not going to have someone open 2 tabs like I'm doing and type something here, copy paste it over there, and all of that. you would want to work with an API usually. So if you're not at all familiar, OpenAI has like an API for working. I want to go to the documentation. Read the documentation. Here we are. For working with things. So in this case, it would be working with ChatGPT. So there are text generation, chat completions. There are examples of doing this. We can do it curl node or Python. So effectively, it ends up being, there's stuff you can tell the model. It's like, here's some general stuff about you. User is what like a person would type in. Assistant is what the model returns to you. So a typical way of doing sort of this prompt engineering stuff where like I'm trying to expect someone to type this and then get all of this. Let me actually just copy this. And then I'll come over to a notebook here. It doesn't quite matter. This is empty, just logo shout out stuff. So here, let's say that I have my prompt, or let's call this template. Template equals. And then here, all right, so if you have used Python before, you probably know where I'm going with this, but in general, what I'm doing here is I'm saying we're going to have this idea of a template where we're going to always use it and then do something with it. So this is in the case you're a children's book illustrator, describe something. Keep your answer as short as possible. And so this something, we're going to look at if we print template.format and then give it a teddy bear. I'm misspelling something. I forgot to run this. That's what I did. Right. So when I run this calling .format on this text that I have here, what that does is it replaces these curly brackets with whatever I put here. And this thing here, you can imagine if you're making a program, a user comes in, they type a teddy bear. Then we get this. And this would be then exactly what we could give to ChatGPT. All right, that is quite short. And let's take a look at it. Now, why do we bother going over to into a programming language to do this? Well, because you can actually interact with ChatGPT from Python itself or from other languages too. That's okay. A couple of these are not scary. Yeah. So like if we were trying to build a program, sort of like this web interface where you just have something to type, you have a generate image button, something like that. What we could do to power it is have something kind of like this. We have behind the scenes, whatever our general template thing that we decide, like we play around with it and we figure out this usually gives consistent results or what we're looking for or something like that. And then when a user types in like a teddy bear over here, that we plug in to our template and we get out all of this stuff, send it to the language model, ChatGPT, get back its response right here, which if we were looking at the API documentation, we'd basically be sending it this, and then it would reply with this. So you get back something that says role assistant content, and then fluffy brown teddy bear. So, and at that point, we could then take it and pass it to our second model to generate the image. And again, why? Because people are lazy. We want to be able to type as little as possible and get something a lot more specific. So one last layer we can put onto this before we wrap up here. All of this stuff here, it's like you might be thinking that's fine and good, and like, yeah, we could change this around here, but maybe I don't want to make only a children's book illustrator generator. Like that doesn't seem quite good. But I also don't want people to have to like type a lot still. So like what about something like making this template better? Well, there's a number of ways you can go about doing that. One option would be to just collect data from people about like what they like. So if you give sort of like a survey, like if you come over, like again, to sort of this place here, you were to give people different things, let them rate them. I think this has favorites and stuff, but so you can see how many people favorited them, things that have more favorites or more well-liked, however you want to do it there. You can actually collect data around these things and then use that separately to have a model that helps you do something with it. What is something you can do with it? Well, I'm glad you asked. There are different, we talked before about how this is generating images. There's nothing stopping us from pairing it with a search, however, but not searching for images, but searching for templates or prompts, basically. So let me take, I don't know, this one. So this guy, like, he actually had a couple. There's this one here. There's this one here. I think there's a couple more down here. I actually like this one better for right now. So again, this was the prompt that he started with. Now imagine for a second that someone has like, they type, I don't know, a white horse. And we search, like we have a collection of prompts and maybe images too that we just have lying around, such as this. And we say, okay, we're going to search for a white horse and we're going to find prompts that we know about that are close to that. Then you could either just like either replace it with it, but maybe they said like a brown horse or something like that. So let's look at what we can do here. It's like modify the following description to be about a brown. So what I'm doing here is like, imagine that, again, we searched for something, we're looking for a brown horse. We found that we had something that's about a white horse. So we pull that back, but then we don't want a white horse, we want a brown horse. So you can do something like ask ChatGPT, hey, make this about a brown horse instead of a white horse. You might think, oh, that's overkill. You could just search and replace white with brown. You don't know, however, that someone is going to ask for just a color change or something you could search and replace. So like, let's take a look at what this gives. Hopefully it will have a correct number of eyes and legs. It's not good with legs either. All right, well, aesthetically, it is very close to what we were looking at over there, and it is a brown horse. So I would say that wins. So again, the flow you would have here if you're trying to do that is you can collect information of like things that you know are good or close to what you want or whatever successful options. You can keep basically a database of them. When someone comes in with with something, you can take what their request is, search your database for a similar thing, then somehow using a language model or otherwise, say it's like take this thing that it's close to and make it about this thing to get a new prompt, and then pass that to your image generator to be able to do this. Now, finally, we're talking about all of this. So you can make a product out of this. It's like, what is a product that you might want to do with this? Well, one thing that comes to mind would be sort of like advertising. So if you're an ad agency or you're a company that does advertising or something like that, typically you have some sort of aesthetic. There's a style, there's color schemes, there's something you're trying to go for. If you spent time getting like trying to tweak one of these models or prompts for these models to match your aesthetic, then you can do this sort of setup where you have like a number of existing prompts that you could like search for a close one, tailor it to your specific need, and then get something else. And then you're going to have a lot easier time getting just assets for your advertising. Doesn't have to be advertising. You can do the same thing for like video games, for like, it doesn't really matter, but just like pick something where you would need images for. And a setup like this is going to get you a lot more consistent results than simply saying like a brown horse. Right. What way do you know exists to get deterministic results from image generation? Good question. So it doesn't show up in this particular web page, but all models are actually deterministic. Full stop. ChatGPT is deterministic, not the one they let you play with, though. So all randomness in any computer program, including these ML models, is based on what's called a random seed. There's some number that's used to set up a random number generator, and based on that number, it will give you a unique output, like a unique sequence of random numbers. If you give it the same starting number, you get the same sequence. Typically, you give it a different number so that you get different outputs. So if you had access to the model and could change the random seed, which if we look at the whatchamacallit, diffusion DB, this right here is the random seed. So these things, if you had access to the stable diffusion model that created this image, and you had this prompt, you had this random seed, you had these other settings, you would get exactly this result. Not almost this result, exactly this result. So in that case, it would be deterministic. But coming back to the horse here, with just a brown horse, we get the diversity that I think we would expect. 5 legs, that's great. A painting, a photo, sort of a mix between the two, maybe yeah. But anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much the long and long of all of this. Any other questions before I let you go? Right. Definitely more things to try out. So the slides that I was showing, as well as, I mean, our minimal notebook here will be shared later. I'll put in the chat for those who got here after I put it here. This is the stable diffusion that we're looking at right here. If you would like to play with it, diffusion DB. These will all be shared in an email also. The prompt hero. Yeah.
So thank you, Cole. If there's no question, I think there's one more.
Yeah, can you categorize the use of the image generative existing today? Not exactly sure what you're talking about in that case, but generally speaking, the models that everyone is using, so DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and many others are what are called diffusion models. And they all typically also take text as an input. There are other models that are slightly older than that called GANs, generative adversarial networks. They tend to just generate images. Like you can get really good images of faces on a GAN that's trained on faces, but you can't prompt it. You can't do the text input for most of the time. But the hip thing to do right now is to have text to everything. There's also beyond images, there's text to 3D, there's text to video, there's text to animated 3D models. So there's text to music, there's everything. Like if you can have it, you can probably end up with a text to it model. Oh, Midjourney equals photorealistic. Yeah, so the last point about this is you can kind of just look at their advertising. Like you go to the Midjourney page or whatever and see what people are making with it or what they're showing, and it's going to be that. So most people say, yeah, photorealistic is you get easier with Midjourney. more painterly or cartoony things, Stable Diffusion or Dolly are good for that. Now, it's also possible to get any of them to do anything. It's just how much effort you need to put into it. I will also say one more thing, that the images, like there was like about a year ago, a cover of Cosmopolitan, the magazine, was made with AI, and they said they made this big deal of like, oh, this was made in like 15 seconds. No, it took 15 seconds to generate. It took months of screwing with the prompt and messing with it in order to generate the images that they wanted to use. So it's not purely just like money printer go burr by putting in text and getting out an image. A lot of the times, like, you have to massage the prompts, you have to try multiple versions, you have to change the other parameters, you have to do stuff to it after you generate it. But yeah, like, you can make any model do anything aesthetically if you put in the time. You're welcome.
Is there any other questions? Thank you, Cole, again. And if you guys have any question about what Cole teach today or anything, you can just email us. If you have any questions regarding to our data science bootcamp or data science analytics bootcamp, please feel free to email us at admissions@nycdatascience.com. And we will email you the recording and the materials of today's events. So, good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.